Tonight, at least 15 people have been killed and many more injured after a shooting at a Hanukkah celebration on a beach in Australia.
Everyone was just running and there were bullets. We were really scared.
The horror and panic as gunmen opened fire, and the bystander being called a hero for his actions against one of the alleged shooters. Oh! Plus the grief and fear in the Jewish community here in Canada.
As a Jew, feeling that I could be targeted, I could be singled out just because of my faith.
Floodwaters in British Columbia are receding, but the threat remains.
I don't know how many thousands of dollars we're going to lose. It's just ugly. It is really ugly, eh?
The fear with more heavy rainfall on the way. And Pierre Poilievre says Conservatives are still united, even as the party grapples with another MP crossing the floor.
Is this a problem of your leadership at this time?
No, it's a problem of Mark Carney's leadership.
What he said in an interview with our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton.
From CBC News, this is The National with Ian Hennemanson.
Sydney, Australia is in mourning tonight after a celebration marking the beginning of Hanukkah was turned into a scene of stunning violence. It happened on one of the world's most popular beaches, Bondi Beach, with gunmen taking aim and opening fire at those gathered. At least 15 are dead, including a child. The shooting, which authorities are calling a targeted anti-Semitic attack, has sent shockwaves around the world and has Jewish communities, including here in Canada, on edge. Jennifer Yoon begins our coverage tonight with the panic as the attack unfolded and a remarkable act of bravery caught on camera.
Getting ready to light the menorah on the world-famous Bondi Beach. The start of Hanukkah and the start of summer in Sydney, Australia was supposed to be a celebration, but it turned into a nightmare.
I just saw an older lady get shot and she was on the floor. Saw an older guy get shot, very badly injured on the left-hand side, and I just saw a bunch of people screaming, run towards me.
Everyone was just running and there were bullets and there were so many of them and we were really scared. We didn't know where they were coming from.
Authorities say at least 15 people are dead, including a child. 38 are in hospital with injuries, including 2 police officers. The Australian government calling the attack an act of terrorism.
This was an attack deliberately targeted at the Jewish community on the first day of Hanukkah, which of course should be a joyous celebration, and the Jewish community are hurting today.
A Jewish event where terrorists and murderers, went to kill Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah. It's just unbelievable that in Australia this is allowed to happen.
I feel horrible. I have no husband. I don't know where is his body. Nobody can give me any answer.
Amidst the horror, an act of bravery captured on camera. This man, identified as a local vendor by Australian media, appearing to tackle and disarm one of the gunmen.
Putting his own life at risk to save the lives of countless other people. That man is a genuine hero, and I've got no doubt that there are many, many people alive tonight as a result of his bravery.
Police say the alleged shooters are father and son. The 50-year-old father, a licensed gun owner, shot and killed by officers. The 24-year-old son is in custody in critical condition. 6 firearms were seized and 2 improvised explosive devices were found at the scene. And police were spotted raiding a house in a Sydney suburb that is believed to be the home of the alleged shooters.
We want to get to the bottom of this. We want to understand the motives behind it, and we certainly want to understand the actions that have happened.
Police say they had no signs this attack was coming, and the investigation continues. Jewish organizations have identified one of those killed as a Holocaust survivor, another as a rabbi who helped organize the event. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Journalist Tessa Arcilia joins us now from Sydney and give us a sense of the mood in your city today.
Well, waking up to news of what happened yesterday, Ian, there's a lot of shock and disbelief. And as you can imagine, the scenes that you saw and images from Bondi last night, it's such a common sight in Australia. Yesterday, this beach itself was teeming with people. It's a Sunday night with families. It's close to Christmas. This is just the Australian way of life. And to have an attack happen at something that is so familiar does shake the sense of safety of people. It's been expressed by a lot of the people who were at Bondi last night. And of course, a particular focus to the Jewish community today. They're waking up to the news that it was a targeted attack at a celebration at the beach last night. The Jewish Council of Australia has expressed horror at the shooting. So the focus today, the Prime Minister reiterating, it's about solidarity and cohesion and Australians coming together. And you do get a sense of that today, Ian. Flags are flying at half-mast across the country.
And like Canada, mass shootings are rare in Australia. Gun control is fairly strict, and that's become a focus of questions today.
Absolutely, Ian, and particularly the fact that the gunman, it's been reported that he's a licensed gun owner of 6 firearms, in fact. And so a lot of links being made to the 1996 shooting here in Port Arthur, where 35 people were killed. That incident instigated the gun reforms in this country, and they're looking for leadership on that front, Ian. So we don't know what will happen yet, but there are a lot of calls to revisit the gun control laws in the country and see what can be done on that front.
Journalist Tessa Arcilia in Sydney, Australia. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has condemned the attack and says he warned Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese months ago that his support for Palestinian statehood promotes anti-Semitism.
You took no action, you let the disease spread, and the result is the horrific attacks on Jews we saw today.
Australia was among several countries, including Canada, to formally recognize a Palestinian state during the United Nations General Assembly. In response to Netanyahu's comments, Albanese says now is the time for unity. The attack is also reverberating here in Canada tonight with fear and sadness as Jewish people come together for Hanukkah events. Julia Wong has reaction from across the country and pledges of support from Ottawa.
After the deadly attack at a Hanukkah event in Australia, Canadian Jews coming together on what should be a joyous occasion.
Given what's happened in Sydney, it was nice to be connected to community. Even though I'm from Melbourne, it's still, tough to be away.
We are trying to maintain some strength here, but hopefully it will pass from us all this hatred.
At Hanukkah events across the country, grief and sorrow.
As a Jew, feeling that I could be targeted, I could be singled out just because of my faith, and it's pretty horrible.
I was in shock and crying. My wife was crying. A lot of my friends, both Jewish and non-Jewish, what do we do?
Prime Minister Mark Carney reacting to the shooting, saying he was horrified and pledging Ottawa's support for Canada's Jewish community.
It is not enough for Jewish Canadians to live without fear. Canada is not Canada unless all members of the Jewish community can fully participate in all aspects of Canadian life.
And Jewish leaders say Canadians need to stand together against anti-Semitism.
We have to recognize what's happened in Sydney and recognize that it will not be limited to Sydney unless our broader Canadian society says this will not be tolerated here.
One rabbi hopes this display brings light to the darkness. The attack in Australia hits close to home. His family knows someone injured in the shooting.
This is just, blatant hate for no reason, because the people who perpetrated are not going to gain anything. If anything, they're only going to strengthen our resolve to bring more light and to carry on.
Police in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver say they're increasing their presence at synagogues, Jewish schools, and Hanukkah events this holiday season. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
German police have arrested 5 men suspected of plotting a vehicle attack on a Christmas market. Officials allege a 56-year-old Egyptian man called for an attack intending to kill or injure large numbers of people. 3 Moroccan nationals are accused of agreeing to carry it out, with a 5th suspect allegedly offering support. There has been a series of vehicle attacks in Germany in the last decade, including one at a Christmas market last December that killed 6 people. A major development tonight in the mass shooting at Brown University in Rhode Island. Police have just announced they've released someone they had considered a person of interest, saying the evidence is leading them elsewhere. As investigators work to identify a suspect and motive, witnesses are speaking out about what they went through. And as Katie Simpson explains, at least 2 students had survived school shootings before.
On a cold, damp night, a community comes together seeking comfort. A familiar step in the American grieving process in the wake of another mass shooting.
It's going to be a long road, but what I know about this community is that we will be here for one another.
Some 12 hours after the deadly attack, a lockdown at Brown University was finally lifted. Witnesses are now sharing stories of survival. Some hid behind desks as the gunmen entered a busy lecture hall.
And we heard screaming from various students. And then about 5 seconds later, we see a gunman enter the room. Then he just screamed something and just started shooting.
New video shows students hiding as police bang on the door of their classroom, ensuring the space is safe before leading everyone outside. A traumatic experience multiple students have endured before. Mia Tretta became a teenage anti-gun violence advocate, even visiting the White House after she was shot and her best friend killed in California. She can't believe she's living this again.
But never in my mind would it occur that there was actually a shooting until hundreds of texts started rolling in from everyone.
Another survived the deadly shooting rampage in Parkland, Florida. She was a student at the middle school next door and heard the gunfire that day.
And now there's more kids like myself who've been through 2 school shootings, and I think that's kind of just representative of the situation that the inaction of Congress has put us in.
Hello, everybody.
There are no signs in this moment the president is looking for a debate on U.S. gun laws.
And Brown University, great school. Things can happen. So to the 9 injured, get well fast, and to the families of those 2 that are no longer with us, I pay my deepest regards and respects from the United States of America.
Rhode Island has stronger gun control laws compared to many other U.S. states. That will factor into the debate about U.S. gun laws, which typically happens after a mass shooting, but rarely leads to tangible change.
And Katie, what more do we know tonight about the victims of this attack?
9 people were taken to hospital, and while 1 is in critical condition, everyone is expected to survive. Classes and exams at Brown are suspended for the rest of the semester, giving the community a moment to grieve.
Katie Simpson in Washington. And turning to breaking news, legendary director and actor Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer have been found dead inside their Los Angeles home, according to multiple media reports. Los Angeles police just gave an update but didn't say much other than they're investigating 2 sudden deaths. They gave no information on whether they're pursuing any suspects. The fire department was initially called for a medical emergency at the home. Reports say a family spokesperson is confirming their deaths. Reiner, 78, is known for Hollywood classics such as This Is Spinal Tap, A Few Good Men, Stand By Me, and many more. He met Singer on the set of When Harry Met Sally. The couple have 3 children together. BC's Fraser Valley is bracing for another round of heavy rain. Up to 80 millimeters could fall on the region, still dealing with flooding from earlier this week. Caroline Bargout now with what's expected and the calls for more action to prevent future floods.
Cleanup has begun at the EnviroCorps Recycling Depot. It was filled with 3 feet of water when the Nooksack River in Washington state spilled its banks. Supervisor Vern Oystrick is now assessing the damage.
Well, I don't know how many thousands of dollars we're going to lose because I think this is a floodplain, so I don't think we can get insurance. You know, so it's just ugly. It is really ugly.
325 properties were evacuated in Abbotsford and Chilliwack. Those residents still can't go home. Meanwhile, floodwaters are receding, and some evacuation warnings have been downgraded to alerts. But more rain is on the way. Up to 80 millimeters is expected in some areas beginning Sunday night. And that's concerning for those who've been through this before.
The biggest one was on 21.
Austin Vela has lived in Abbotsford for 23 years. His home was evacuated twice during the historic flooding in 2021. When floodwaters started creeping closer to his property this time around, he feared the worst.
Honest to God, I was worried because catastrophe like this, everybody got hurt. So, but I could see the waters going back, so it was a big relief.
Local and provincial officials are now calling on Ottawa to do more to protect British Columbians from floodwaters flowing from the U.S. 2021 saw the worst flooding in BC history when the Nooksack River again sent its overflow into communities north of the border. 20,000 people were evacuated, 2.5 million livestock were impacted, and more than 1,000 homes were flooded.
It's incredibly difficult to have this kind of situation where the federal government really needs to step up and then being really absent from that conversation.
Officials are not sure how this next round of rain will react with current stream flows and water levels on the ground. Caroline Bargu, CBC News, Vancouver.
Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre is defending his leadership after another MP defected from his party this week. Ontario MP Michael Maw announced he was crossing the aisle Thursday. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, Poilievre, in his first on-camera interview since that defection, pointed the finger at the Liberal Party.
Wow, such a big welcome.
The latest Conservative Party defection, not something leader Pierre Poilievre wanted to focus on in his first on-camera interview since another Conservative MP crossed the floor to join the Liberals.
Is this a problem of your leadership at this point?
No, it's a problem of Mark Carney's leadership.
Poilievre accusing Prime Minister Mark Carney of trying to manipulate his way to a majority government.
You have to go to the Canadian people and have them vote for it, not do it by dirty backroom deals.
Speaking on Rosemary Barden Live, Poilievre said Conservatives remain united behind one message.
Affordability, affordability, affordability.
Now, with 2 floor crossings and one Conservative MP announcing plans to resign, the Liberals are just 1 seat away from a majority and pushing back against Poilievre's claims of backroom deals.
It's an absolutely legitimate parliamentary decision, and we'll see if others also decide.
A Liberal majority would be a major blow to Poilievre, who is facing a leadership review next month, a contest Daniel Smith is endorsing him in.
Let's talk about the amazing and brilliant Premier of Alberta.
Poilievre suggested Smith played the Prime Minister in their recent Memorandum of Understanding, when Carney reversed some environmental regulations in exchange for federal support on a new pipeline. Poilievre said he would push through that project, even if British Columbia and First Nations don't want it.
Would you just say, too bad, we're doing it?
We're doing it.
When asked if he would do anything differently moving forward, Poilievre didn't say, reiterating the reason he's still in the job to fight, he says, for a better, more affordable future for Canadians. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
Let's bring in our chief political correspondent, Rosemary Barton. And Rosemary, what stood out to you from your interview with Poilievre?
Yeah, I mean, Ian, let's start with the fact that 6 months ago, Pierre Poilievre would not have done that interview. So just answering questions, defending his leadership in this moment is a shift of some kind. But he was unwilling to consider that the loss of 2 MPs and another who's chosen to resign has anything to do with his leadership style. Instead, he tried to make this about the Prime Minister's leadership and his desire for a majority government. There was no real sign in that interview that Mr. Poilievre has taken a message from these defections or is doing anything in particular to prevent further departures. And that may be concerning to some of his own MPs who are feeling frustrated, outmaneuvered by the Liberals who continue to try to squeeze them on issues like energy, for instance. But Mr. Poilievre does seem convinced, Ian, that his message on affordability is the right one.
And what is the risk to his leadership right now?
No one that I am speaking to believes that Mr. Poilievre's leadership review at the end of next month will fail. The same may not be said, though, of his caucus, who are now all back in their ridings, speaking to constituents and probably answering questions about what the heck is going on. If there were to be another defection that would get Prime Minister Carney to a Liberal majority, it would be very difficult to see how the leader could make the case to stay. But for now, that's just an if, and so Poilievre has some room to fight on, Ian.
All right, Rosemary, thank you.
Thank you.
Advocates are pushing for more action after the death of a homeless man in a Montreal encampment.
In the winter, a lot of the measures are very last minute.
The growing concern as freezing temperatures set in. An accidental discovery off the coast of Vancouver Island.
Really unique in the animal world to see dolphins and killer whales foraging together.
The potential reason behind the partnership. And a giant dose of Christmas spirit.
Well, that's my big Santa.
We're back in 2. This is just the slightest taste of what's in store for Atlantic Canada tonight. A snow alert is in effect across parts of Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador. Blizzard conditions are expected in some areas, and getting around is going to be tough. Environment Canada warns the worst hit places could get 40 centimeters. The death of a Montreal man in a tent fire is raising concerns about the dangers vulnerable people face in the winter. And it comes in the same week 3 Quebec seniors were found dead in the cold. Sarah Levitt now on the calls for action.
Tragedy after a cold night in Montreal. Firefighters and paramedics respond to a fire at an unauthorized encampment used by some who are homeless. Police say they were called after a tent caught fire. A man in his 30s was found inside.
Malheureusement, son décès a été constaté sur place.
But it was clear he had died. An autopsy will determine his cause of death, but homeless advocates say staying warm in Montreal's harsh winters isn't easy, which contributes to people creating encampments and potentially dangerous situations.
They're not able to consistently have access to the resources that they need. They don't know which shelters are going to be open and which ones are going to be closed sometimes because in the winter, a lot of the measures are very last minute.
Since her election in November, Montreal's Mayor Soraya Martinez-Ferrada says tackling homelessness is her #1 priority. The city has already opened an emergency shelter with 100 spots, with plans for more. Sunday's death, though, not the only one potentially related to the cold. 3 seniors, all in unrelated incidents, were found dead outside within the last week. The causes not yet known. Standing outside his grandmother's seniors' residence, Marc-Olivier Naude says she died frozen. 88-year-old Jean Goyer, suffering from an illness similar to dementia, was found in the snow on Monday. A few days later,
Mes condoléances à la famille. J'ai fait ce que je pouvais.
this snowplow driver came across an 84-year-old woman wearing a T-shirt during a snowstorm. He performed CPR but was unable to save her. And on Friday, a 78-year-old man was also found dead outside his apartment building. 4 deaths, highlighting the risks facing vulnerable people as the cold sets in. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Whales and dolphins are teaming up using their unique skills to capture prey.
It works out for both parties. Everyone's happy at the end of a successful fishing trip.
Why some say unusual partnerships in the wild could become more common. Europe is building up its military in the face of threats by Russia.
They would be difficult to defend if Russia decided to attack them.
Weapons, defense, and a move towards conscription. How countries are preparing in case of war. The National breaks down stories shaping our world next. Researchers have captured rare video of killer whales and dolphins helping each other hunt salmon off the BC coast. As Yasmin Reiner explains, the video offers a glimpse into how marine mammals are adapting to find food.
It's being called an extraordinary discovery. Northern resident killer whales and Pacific white-sided dolphins working together to find salmon.
It's really unique in the animal world to see dolphins and killer whales foraging together.
Scientist and drone pilot Keith Holmes made the discovery off Vancouver Island by accident while conducting another study. Researchers then temporarily attached tags to some whales to watch and listen to their interactions with dolphins.
We could hear their calls and echolocating. But on top of that, we were hearing the dolphins echolocating. And as we started to compare things, we were noticing that the killer whale was going quiet.
Turns out the orcas were listening to the dolphins, who were diving deep into the ocean to search for large Chinook salmon, prey that dolphins can't catch on their own and that are too big for them to eat whole. The orcas then make the kill, sharing the food with their pods, and the dolphins get the scraps.
So it works out for both parties. Everyone's happy at the end of a successful fishing trip.
And it's no fluke. Researchers saw dolphins swim near whales more than 250 times in one summer. Marine experts outside of the study say orcas have had to adapt to changing ecosystems.
It's not surprising that they would learn that in order to survive, especially in this day and age when food may not be as accessible as it once was, that they really do need to work together.
That teamwork could be critical in helping marine mammals deal with noise from ship traffic.
Potentially, it could be advantageous to have cooperative foraging with other animals.
Researchers also wonder if it could offer southern resident killer whales considered endangered in Canada, partly because of a lack of food, a lifeline. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Vancouver.
Time now to break down the stories shaping our world. In the shadow of possible war, Europe pumps up its military muscle.
A European drone wall, an eastern flank watch.
Driven by Russia's ambitions and shifting U.S. rhetoric.
This is a fight for our future.
But many younger Europeans just don't feel like fighting. A continent at peace for decades is now rushing to shore up defenses. Andrew Chang, host of CBC's About That, shows the signs of fear on the front lines.
If Russia were to go to war with Europe, could Europe defend itself? This is not some crazy hypothetical. It was made real by Vladimir Putin this week, and his answer is clear. If Europe suddenly wants to start a war with us, it would end so swiftly for Europe that Russia would have no one left to negotiate with. What he's not saying is that a kind of hybrid war has already begun.
Confusion at 4 airports in Denmark last night when drones appeared in their airspace.
Germany's interior minister said Saturday that it has noticed an increased presence of drones.
Russia has been accused of attempted sabotage.
Russian cyber attack has the power to switch off the lights for millions.
For years, Europe has been questioning its own security, and it's more worried now than it's ever been that the world's foremost military superpower is growing weary of defending it.
We're paying 100% of their military, and they're screwing us on trade.
And so, having to plan for this possibility that a Russian attack on Europe could be more than just a hypothetical, European military spending has surged. Defense plans are taking shape.
NATO has announced plans to beef up the defense of Europe's eastern flank.
A European drone wall, an eastern flank watch, an air defense shield, and a defense space shield.
And individual countries are openly discussing ways to bolster their ranks, to deter Russia from attacking, and to be battle ready if it does. Let me show you how Europe is rearming for war.
Europe's security paradigm has been shaken. The question is no longer if Europe is at risk, but how fast it can respond.
Honorable members, Europe is in a fight.
That is the president of the European Union's main executive branch. Her State of the Union address this year was about survival.
Make no mistake, this is a fight for our future.
And we can better understand the battle lines for that fight by understanding where and how Russia projects power. Ukraine has become such a focal point for European security because it is very much a doorway to the continent. But through Belarus, Russia already has a toehold into Europe. From here, it maintains military bases, stages troop offensives, even stations nuclear weapons. In mid-September, Russia held large-scale military drills with Belarus, which sowed fear and uncertainty because those kinds of exercises were also what preceded the start of the war in Ukraine. Another potential front, the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, considered by Europe to be a critical front line in any open war with Russia. Then there's this. On a map, sure doesn't look like Russia, but Kaliningrad is heavily militarized Russian territory. The country's Baltic fleet is based here. There's air defense, anti-ship missiles, and a tactical concern that by establishing a land bridge here connecting Kaliningrad to Belarus, Russia could try to sever the Baltic states from Central Europe. In this way, Kaliningrad is exposed, yes, but also very offensively positioned. And Germany is only a few hundred kilometers away, a country that has very recently felt firsthand what Russian encroachment may look like.
It could be in the south, it could be in the north, it could be along the long Finnish border. The Baltic countries, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, that are now members of NATO, used to be part of the Soviet Union. They would be difficult to defend if Russia decided to attack them. So in theory, this is a very serious, grave military threat.
Until now, what's made Europe's enemy on its doorstep less menacing is the American security umbrella, a guarantee of protection, which includes America's nuclear deterrent. But that security relationship has thinned under Donald Trump.
NATO was busted until I came along. I said, everybody's going to pay. They said, well, if we don't pay, are you still going to protect us? I said, absolutely not. They couldn't believe the answer.
And this isn't just bluster. There is a growing body of research examining this possibility of American withdrawal, gaming out right down to the specific fighter jets, naval destroyers, and missile batteries Europe may not be able to count on, and how the cost to the continent of providing its own alternatives, covering this gap in military power, might add up to about $1 trillion.
Europeans are looking at American politics. They're looking at Donald Trump and his America First, and they have no choice but to ask, for how long can we count on the United States? And as a consequence, Europe has no choice but to invest in its own defense capabilities.
So in part to make up for these potential shortfalls, the EU has proposed an 800 billion euro plan, and these are 4 of its key pillars. Let's start with the European Drone Defense Initiative, a network of detection, tracking, and counter-drone capabilities, built specifically with the lessons of the Ukraine war in mind, and how they've become this kind of defining technology, providing surveillance, munitions guidance, even becoming precision missiles themselves, cheap weapons capable of crippling expensive systems. The Eastern Flank Watch is meant to combine air, ground, and counter-drone defenses, establishing a surveillance perimeter at both the Baltic and Black Seas while integrating into an existing command and control structure of NATO programs, such as the rotation of NATO fighter jets into Baltic air bases and the permanent forward deployment of troops to key countries making up the Eastern Front. The European Air Shield is all about missile defense and protecting airspace. Think of it like Europe's version of Israel's Iron Dome, except with one big strategic disadvantage, that Israel and Europe are nowhere near the same size. There is no single system that could defend the entire continent from the full range of Russian attacks, from short-range missiles to long-range hypersonics. So the system calls for a patchwork of defense bubbles to gradually build out more and more zones of protected airspace. Finally, there's the European Space Shield, protecting satellites and other assets from attack, from signal jamming, so that they can continue the work of facilitating navigation, surveillance, and communication.
All of a sudden, those capabilities, which have relied very heavily on an American backbone, are being re-energized now without America behind it.
These are all explicit, if admittedly vague, priorities laid out by the European Union, with a whole schedule of phased rollouts planned between now and 2030, because Russia, pouring incredible amounts of money into its military, quote, poses a persistent threat to European security for the foreseeable future. So these are core pieces of Europe's plan to counterbalance Russia's military strength. But there's a more immediate problem that has to do with the backbone of all these programs, and that's the mobilization of people. In some parts of Europe, conscription is a distant memory. 4 out of every 5 Brits, for example, won't even remember a time when forced military service was a thing because they weren't alive when it was a thing and then stopped being a thing in 1960. So nowadays, filling the ranks is hard.
The British military today is its weakest it has been in the last 200 years.
The UK's annual Strategic Defence Review describes the state of defence today like this: poor recruitment and retention, shoddy accommodation, falling morale, and cultural challenges, a workforce crisis, the number of regulars and reservists in persistent decline. This is also a very contentious issue in Germany, which is struggling right now to reprioritize its military because up to a fifth of its commissioned officer posts aren't even filled. The parliamentary commissioner for the country's armed forces says the military has too little of everything. And consider, more broadly, when young people ages 18 to 35 were asked late last year if they would volunteer to help defend their own country or another European country from attack, more than half of respondents in Germany, France, the UK, and Spain said they would probably or definitely not volunteer. Finally, let's zoom out even further, continent-wide. A Gallup survey last year suggested less than a third of EU citizens would be willing to fight for their country. That's less enthusiasm than the poll found in both Canada and the US.
If you're 20 years old today and you're therefore subject to conscription, you've grown up after the end of the Cold War. You don't have any personal memories of a divided Europe, the Berlin Wall, repression.
So across Europe, a fundamental shift in the conversation, whether to force more people to serve.
Could military service and even conscription become reality again in European countries?
Italy and Germany are floating the idea of requiring young people to report for military service.
There is a fairly stark line being drawn among EU countries. There are those who, for example, have abolished and so far rejected the idea of compulsory military service. Some, like France, though, are trying to incentivize it. They're, for example, introducing a new voluntary program to 18 and 19-year-old men and women for 10 months of paid military training. Germany, it's going a step further, with plans in 2027 to force all 18-year-olds to complete a questionnaire on their suitability to serve. But others, like Croatia, are actually set to reinstate conscription as early as next year.
There's a real emphasis and there's real money behind this to incentivize, getting young men and women in uniform, learning to shoot straight and to prepare for the eventuality of armed conflict, which, this generation was not prepared for.
Denmark is extending its draft to women and the length of compulsory service from 4 months to 11. And some countries are even further along than that. Latvia and Lithuania have already fully restored mandatory military service, citing the Russian threat. In fact, you take a look at those European countries where citizens already do or are set to undergo mandatory military service or training, you start to see a common geographic thread, right? The closer you get to Russia's border, the more urgently governments have acted to meet higher and higher troop targets.
I do think the frontline nations, the Baltics, Finland, Poland, there is a much more permissive political environment to spend more on defense and to talk about conscription. As you move further to the West, countries like Italy, countries like Spain and Portugal, they're much farther from the front. This is a harder sell.
And it may also be an uphill battle to work cooperatively. How might dozens of European nations with such a range of differences come together fast enough against a Russian attack?
EU countries spend big on defense, but keeping Russia in check will take more than money.
They have jealously guarded their sovereignty when it comes to questions of national security.
They need to unite in the face of possible war. Andrew Chang, host of CBC's About That, is back now to break down how this could play out.
It should go without saying, Europe considering this pivot from a peacetime economy to a wartime one has and will take an extraordinary amount of money. Last year, according to one independent research report tracking global military spending, Europe spent $693 billion US, a massive increase of 17% over the previous year, accounting for more than a quarter of the world's total military spending. And together, Europe's top spenders are outpacing Russia, dollar for dollar. Germany, the UK, France, Poland, and Italy, all together more than doubling Russia's defense spending. But experts warn what will ultimately give Europe peace of mind is going to take more than just program announcements and policies and people and even the pouring of money into all of these things. Europe's challenge is to stitch together what is currently a 44-nation patchwork of different approaches, different politics, different priorities, to somehow find a way to present a cohesive front against an opponent that is, at least for the time being, entirely unified under just one man, under one rule.
There isn't a central government like there is in the United States or like there is in Canada. They have passed sovereignty to Brussels when it comes to trade negotiations, but they have jealously guarded their sovereignty when it comes to questions of national security, military spending, military strategy. And so even though you have Germany ready to spend a lot more on defense, Germany talking about becoming a much more capable military partner, that's only a piece of the puzzle. The other piece is Germany going to work with France and Italy and Spain and Poland to rationalize defense spending and to collectivize defense strategy?
There are two saving graces, though. The first is that an overt attack, taking on the alliance of NATO or EU member countries, would be a very daunting red line for Russia to cross. The other saving grace, though, is that Europe's most immediate challenge isn't to figure out how to go toe-to-toe with the Russian army. It's not even figuring out how to wage war without American firepower. The task today is simply to deter, to make the case that any attack beyond Ukraine would be met with the weight of an entire continent bearing down.
A warning this week from NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Europeans must prepare for the scale of war endured by their grandparents and great-grandparents, but the worst can be averted if NATO commitments are met. Here's a quick peek at a story we're bringing you. David Common checks in on people in Jamaica weeks after Hurricane Melissa tore a path of deadly destruction. He found human suffering, but also resilience. Take a look.
Wherever we went in Jamaica, we were told of the people's resilience. You see it in neighbors helping neighbors, like this man up a ladder repairing power lines rather than wait weeks more for the overburdened electrical company.
You've had no power since the storm?
No. No light, no power, nothing. We have to wash in with our hands and stuff like that. It's very hard.
All your clothes you're washing by hand,
Yeah. I can't wait to get back some light.
Carmita Johnston hasn't had power since the hurricane tore the lines away.
Do you mind if I ask you what he's doing?
He is shifting the wire, add a piece of wire to it and put it straight. So when the lightmen come to connect it, it's in its right place. That's what he's doing.
She's been without power all this time and also without work. Like many Jamaicans, Carmita works in the tourism sector. She's a housekeeper in a hotel, but it's too damaged to yet reopen.
None of us have any jobs. Most of the hotels are out. Yeah, we just have to be doing cleaning up work. We have no tourist season. Most of the hotels are down. So it's really bad.
It's why Jamaican officials are encouraging tourists to return. It may be odd to see cruise ships and beachgoers relax when there's such destruction nearby. Carmita says the country needs those visitors.
We're depending on the tourist money to come in so we can get gratuity, so we can get paid. So tourism is our best income here, so it is bad.
You can get David's full story Monday on The National. Next, an Ontario neighborhood gets a sizable dose of holiday cheer.
It keeps everybody happy. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to set up.
The story behind this inflatable spectacle in our moment. This is not your average Christmas decoration. And standing at 40 feet tall, about 13 meters, a giant inflatable Santa Claus has left its mark in Timmins, Ontario. After hours of hard work, lots of rope, and some serious dedication, the gigantic display of Christmas spirit makes our moment.
Well, that's my big Santa. was looking up, inflatable Santas, and then, you see Home Depot, Canadian Tire, they're 20 feet. And I'm like, it's got to be something bigger. Like, it's got to be a world's largest Santa. We put it in the order, 40 feet. So I have 4 kids. They love it. All their friends love it. And it keeps everybody happy. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to set up. You got to tie it all down. You got to put the sandbags on the feet. You know what I mean? Every day we have to monitor the weather. Snow squalls pop up here like crazy. We're in Timmins, Ontario. So it happens fast. Once it's set up though, we can just unplug it and re-plug it in, and that's it. It's pretty simple after that, but the initial one's time consuming. I mean, I love Christmas. We're, very festive, obviously, in my family. Our whole family, very festive. So the gigantic Santa, just everybody loves it.
I mean, truly gigantic. I'm trying to picture what that would look like in my neighborhood. I think the people who live on my block are happy that though I love Christmas inflatables, I have a 2-foot Snoopy doll and Frosty the Snowman. I'll leave it at that. From all of us here on The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Ian Hannah-Mansing in Vancouver. You can also join me on CBC News Network, weeknights at 7 Eastern. See you then.